Hi, it's Martha from Hunch Manifest and Schema Apps, bringing you another Schema story. Today, I'm joined by Ryan Rodden from Philadelphia and the founder of Whitblade, who's going to share with us his journey using structured data and share some of his tips and tricks with us today. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, Martha.
So we're going to start off. With my usual question. Tell us a bit about yourself and about your company.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually I studied English in college. So I actually was not a tech guy at all. I was more of a writer, and that certainly is paying off now, especially when it comes to content. But throughout my career, I've actually spent almost a decade in the advertising agency world, everywhere from pharmaceutical marketing to like giant e-commerce platforms. And I've done project management and actually didn't do SEO a lot in that time, believe it or not. But during that time, I got to know the whole development process, the cycle, content writing, graphic design, WordPress, things like that. And over time, I just decided that I was obsessed with the idea of marketing, especially online marketing. And I think all of us can agree in SEO that one day, you know, becoming an affiliate marketer that makes a ton of money on the side would be great, just from the sheer power of SEO and internet marketing. So that's how I got into it to begin with. And as I started learning WordPress, and I'm mostly self-taught, you know, obviously I've looked up a lot of resources online, YouTube videos, things like that, learned how to blog, learned how to do things like that, and then just started getting into the SEO space pretty obsessively,
Awesome.
which led me to start my own business, which is, you know, I do a lot of the work, the SEO work itself, but I also do consulting, which has led me to Schema.org. Of course.
Excellent. So that sort of leads me to my next question around sort of, you know, and everything else that you've been doing. You know, when did you first sort of learn about sort of Schema.org and semantic marketing, and what was it that interested you?
Yeah. So it definitely happened when I started hanging out with really nerdy SEOs, right? So you talk to people about SEO, and a lot of them talk about backlinks and great content and all that. And then occasionally you'll get on a webinar with people, or you read a blog and somebody gets really technical and nerdy on you. And I remember reading an article about Schema.org and basically the idea of giving Google extra metadata, right? Or just giving them extra information. And this has been around for a while now. This isn't something like, it's 2016 now, but this has been around for a long time. And it seems like, you know, I don't know if people have largely ignored it, or they just, you know, didn't find that it was worth it, you know, worth doing at the time, or maybe Google hasn't given it the weight that it deserved then, and maybe they are now. So once I stumbled upon Schema.org, or actually just the semantic web in general, I just obsessively researched it, and obviously that leads you to Schema.org itself. I think the first thing I ever looked at was the schema hierarchy, and the one page that just has pretty much everything, you know, imaginable on one gigantic page. And when I saw that page, I started to really understand what it was, right? Because you can go read about Schema.org and it's not really clear. If you're a newbie, you're not really sure what they're talking about. And then when you see the classification, the hierarchy, you can kind of understand what the goal is.
And sort of like the pure nerdiness of it. Now, we kind of connected through the Google Plus community that Aaron Bradley runs. So I would actually put you in that nerdy category.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I would say I am. I mean, the fact that I wanted to jump on this interview is pretty damn nerdy. So and I'm proud of that. I'm not going to shy away from that.
It's all good. Our whole company is based on sort of the nerdiness. So
yeah,
it's about sort of, you know, getting deeper into sort of how it all works and how you communicate. So I always like to ask, like, in your words, like in one sentence, how do you describe semantic marketing?
So, how do I describe it?
Like if you were to try to describe it to a client or someone who's not technical.
That's very difficult. If I was going to describe it to a client, I would just describe it in a way that says, I'm going to utilize technology to the highest capability with industry standard best practices to give Google what they want, right?
Perfect.
So they want data and they want information. And if they have to just scrape your HTML website, it can be really hard to discern that. So they are saying, you know, based on new technology, here's what we want you to do. And if you don't have an SEO person or a marketing person or a tech person that's aware of these new technologies, you can't take advantage of it, right? So
awesome.
That's how I explain it.
Awesome. And sort of in your words, like the value and sort of like the value is being debated, right? We talk about sort of, is rich snippets the be all and end all, or is it something
Right.
else? What are your thoughts on sort of like the value of doing schema.org markup?
Well, here's what I would say. A lot of people might say, oh, it's not really worth doing. I never see rich snippets yet. I'm not seeing a lot of increased traffic from having schema. The thing you have to think about is that just because you put schema on your site doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get any immediate results, or you're not going to get rich snippets, or you're not going to be in a knowledge graph. What you have to understand is you should give Google schema to consider, so that in the future, when they flip a switch and they decide to add things to the knowledge graph or give you a monstrous chunk of rich snippets, that you are eligible for that, right? So you might add a giant schema chunk to your website today, but not until September or something this year does Google make a change, and all of a sudden they're using all of that great information that you're giving them, right? So the idea for me is to just be ahead of the game and be ready, so that when Google comes, I think Aaron Bradley had a great way of describing it, almost as if you're creating a database on your website that's almost like an API connection, so that when Google wants something, they go to the source, which is your website, and then they pull all this great information from it that you provided. And if you don't provide that information, then you're not going to be eligible for the cool rich snippets or the awesome new knowledge graphs. I'm actually seeing some really cool medical related knowledge graphs.
I know, I saw that today.
Yeah, if you see some of those, that are really cool, and it seems like Google is generating all that information by extracting it from authority sites and things. And this is all stuff that they're probably going to test and make people eligible for. But if you're not in the game, then too bad.
Yeah, it's sort of the lost opportunity by not planning ahead, right?
Yes.
Amazing. So as you've sort of gone through your sort of digging into this, and I know you've been doing it for a couple of years, similar to us, what have been some of the challenges you've run into trying to figure it out as well as execute with it?
So at first, I stumbled upon the microdata format where you kind of do it in line. And the challenge at first was, how do I apply this to somebody's website, right? I actually do not have a development background. I go pretty much as far as a nerdy WordPress guy, but I don't know PHP, I don't know JavaScript, I don't know programming languages. So at first, my challenge was understanding the fact that you actually don't really need to know JavaScript or programming to do this. When somebody was like, oh, well, Ryan, you have to add like a JSON LD, snippet or chunk to your, pages, and you have to put it in the head of your website. I can add code to the head of my website, but I was immediately, confused or didn't understand, or possibly even intimidated by the fact that I had to create a JavaScript chunk because I don't know JavaScript. So at first, the challenge was just understanding and learning the fact that this is actually not that difficult to create these chunks. And I know you guys are creating awesome tools that are just, you fill in the information and bam, you have it like that, which is awesome. But that's the challenge. A lot of people say, oh, I don't want to learn it, it's too complex right now, or I don't know how to code, so I can't do it. You do not have to know how to code to add schema.org. It can be challenging to add it to a really large website, but just to get the basics down, I mean, you can learn it in one day, how to actually create the code itself. Now, the other challenge is also understanding the hierarchy and how the types work, right? So if you're on schema.org and you're looking up code for a person, you have to understand the properties. So the property column and the expected type column are challenging at first to understand what Google's, or actually, Google, Bing, Yahoo, what the search engines are looking for when it comes to the actual data that you're creating, because you want to try to drill down and get as specific as possible. You can start really broad as a thing at the top, and then you can give Google like a really broad chunk, but learning how to really drill down and make it specific is the challenge.
Excellent. And how have you solved that? Like, how are some of the ways that you've learned how to do that better?
Just doing it over and over and over. So I would have test websites, I would have client websites. Now, clients, I wouldn't necessarily just grab a chunk and throw up like a test block or anything. I would always test first. And the Google structured data testing tool is the best way to learn, because you can build your schema right in there if you want to, or anything that you build with a tool, you can drop in there and check to see if it works. As long as it's passing the test, you can start to understand what they're looking for, and then you can start expanding it to really large blocks of data. So, you know, if you look at any one of the things under schema.org, you know, some of them have like 40 properties that you can add. You know, and most people add like 3, you know, the name, the address, a date or something, you know, but you could add like 40 different properties. So at that point, it's just a matter of organizing it all into a nice big block. That's what your tool does really well, and add all those fields and then toss it on your website.
Awesome. So let's switch gears and talk future. So one thing I'd love to get your opinion on is, you know, having the agency background, you know, what do you think some of the challenges bigger agencies or medium-sized agencies are going to have as they try to sort of adopt this at scale? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think e-commerce sites are probably going to see the greatest benefit, I think, right away, versus somebody that has a client that has 50,000, you know, web pages, and you say, okay, well, we need to deploy code on every single one of these pages. Now, if you're a one-man shop like me, it could be really difficult to take on a challenge like that unless you had something to help you. Yeah, first you would have to convince the client or the developer or whoever owns the website that this metadata is important, and get their buy-in. You know, like that's kind of like the opening challenge. But I think, yeah, moving forward into the future, what you want to do is actually show live examples. And what I do is I show restaurant menus. So if you go and Google something like Wildflower Bread Company menu, I think it's like Phoenix, Arizona or something, you can actually see Google build menus right in the search results. Okay, so you can show clients live examples of schema in the works and just wow them and say, see this occurring here. Well, your website, especially actually if it's a huge blogging presence or they're publishing, you can convince them that, you know, you might be eligible for Google News, or you know, you might be right at the top with rich snippets if you have all this stuff marked up and you guys publish as much as you do. So, you know, the fact that you have 50,000 opportunities for all the articles that you have, you know, you really need to do this. So that's kind of like my approach, is always to show an example, maybe wow them a little bit, and then, you know, convince them that it has to be done. I mean, I take the approach that, you know, if I'm doing this job, we're going to do schema.org.
We feel the same way.
You know, like if you don't want to do it, then you can hire somebody else who's, you know, not a nerd.
Yeah, well, we talk about, like, if you're going to be leading edge, right? You might as well not just do 1990s SEO, right? You might as well do something that's also today. So also talking about the future, you recently posted about schema.org, entities, and the future of search. So can you, I'll link the article in the transcript, but can you tell us a bit about sort of your thoughts on where you think this is going?
Okay, so I'm going to really nerd out on you now.
Yeah, do it. This is why we're here.
If you read the Google patents that have come out in the last couple months, and also the changing of the guard when it comes to who's kind of like running Google search, it sounds like they're definitely going down the artificial intelligence path, right? So a patent that came out in February said that they are clearly training RankBrain or whatever it is to understand and identify entities, right? So if you ask Google, who's the president of the United States, it will say Barack Obama. It's not going to send you to a website to give you that answer, right? So Google seems like they're trying to become an answer engine rather than a search engine. So anytime they can just give you the answer rather than sending you to a website, it seems like they prefer to do that. But the only way they can do that is if they can definitively identify what they call entities, right? Or in schema.org terms, a thing. Okay, so a person, or actually, let's talk semantically. So if you have the word bat, B-A-T, without semantics, it's unclear whether that's a baseball bat, whether that's an animal, like the bat flying around, whether I batted away a volleyball. Okay, so the word itself is not enough, but if you can attach meaning to it, like animal, okay, now you're talking about the entity bat, the animal. Okay, now Google goes, oh, right, you're talking about that animal. So that chops away all of that extraneous crap that they don't have to think about when trying to figure out what your site's about, okay? But you can also do this with like companies, right? So you can say, I'm declaring this company as an entity. They are a cleaning company, this is what they do, or they're an insurance agency. And like I said, this might not pay off right away, but as the machine learning gets better, you're going to train it to understand that this is what people are looking for, right? They're not looking for a baseball bat, they're looking for the animal of the bat, or they're not looking for, I don't know, a cleaning company in Texas when they're in Philly, so you can give better location data. It just seems very clear that moving forward, technology and artificial intelligence are going to advance very fast, and the ways in which Google can experiment with the data that they have and show great results in both mobile and desktop results, I think are going to vastly change in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I loved your article. When we saw the Google hierarchy change, that was exactly our excitement that we saw that change, and that we're seeing them double down in that space, in the artificial intelligence space, especially around right brain. And then, we were also talking about, like answers, more and more, how do you actually control how you're contributing to those answers being an important role instead of just even what's on your website? Because contributing to those answers or getting people to get the answers you want them to get may actually start moving traffic into search versus traffic into your website.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you also have to consider voice search and the ways in which people search. A lot of times with text search, people just throw keywords in there sporadically, like just words chopped up. But when people do voice search, they actually talk. Like, I need a laundromat that's 1 mile away, right? Or they say things, they say like a sentence. So if you're trying to train artificial intelligence to understand that, it's going to be more difficult if you're not focusing on voice search at all and you offer voice search, then it's going to be very problematic. But if you can help the machine learn over time, and we can tell that these things are getting extremely powerful, because you saw that that game Go, like a world champion of Go, which is apparently far more complex than chess, was defeated by artificial intelligence. So who knows what's really in store. I even sometimes go as far as to not even believe what Google says sometimes, because I think they're trying to mislead you a little bit. And if you just stick to your guns and know that schema.org is an awesome asset to your website, then just believe in it and just move forward. So whatever they say, they might play around with stuff, or they might try to fool people into thinking one way. But if you just have it, just put it there, relax, move on to the next thing.
Awesome. So two last questions. One is, where is your go-to blog to learn out what's going on with structured data and semantic marketing?
Definitely Aaron Bradley's SEO Skeptic. No question about it. I go to the community for interaction and news, but he seems to be the guy that just honestly, keeps up with it. He's very technical. So that's where I go usually.
Awesome. And last thing, closing out, where's the best place to eat in Philadelphia?
I have to say Fogo de Chao, which is a Brazilian steakhouse you can find probably in a lot of places, but I don't know, the one in Philly is absolutely incredible. You can eat and stuff yourself. I know you were probably thought I was going to say a cheesesteak place or something.
Oh, you never know.
Yeah. It's amazing. Awesome food. Great drinks. I don't know. I've been to a lot of places, and that's your favorite. Food is just outstanding.
The last Fogo de Chao I was at was in Austin, Texas, and it was delicious. Not great for vegetarians, but delicious. Yeah. So if people want to find you, Ryan, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, you can find me in the Semantic group that we're a part of. You can also find me at whitblade.com. That's where I blog. And you can find me on LinkedIn, social media. I can shoot you the links for that if anyone would like to connect, or just do what we're doing here and talk about schema.org and the semantic web. Yeah, that's it really.
Thank you so much for joining us today. That's our schema story. Thank you, Ryan Rodden, for joining us from Philly.
All right. Thanks, Martha.